Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of The Mist. A fantastic season finale. I loved everything that went down in it. Just so much that we're going to have to break down bit by bit. First of all, that little weasel Adrian shifting everything the way he did against Jay. I was like, how are you gonna work your way around this? Because it's like, Alex is, like Jay is holding Alex because of the whole like, finding out. I was like, oh, your dad's dead? It's like, oh, come here, it's okay. And he bashes him over like repeatedly with like a bucket or something. And he's like, no, we were at the hospital, I was with Kevin, and the reports came in about the fact is that Jay, he did it. The DNA came back as his. And then you have Alex being like, it did. And in that moment, it sucks on many different levels because that cemented in Alex's mind, like, oh, he did do it. Because before that, she had her doubts and everything. Like, the only people who were really sure about it was Eve and, she's the only one that's 100% sure about it. I mean, aside from them, Connor, like, he was 100% confident in the whole situation, too. Which makes the whole situation, like, obviously going back. I'm going to be skipping around, so I do apologize. Which makes the whole situation with Jay even sadder. I mean, ultimately, he ended up saving her and sacrificing himself for Alex's sake when they were in the mist, so that sucks that already sucked already. But then on top of that, afterwards, Kevin informs us like, yeah, he didn't do it. Because for her, she's the one, like, because I'm sure on some level she's going to blame herself because it's like she's the one that kind of like said that he did it in the first place. But then it's like she started trusting him a little bit. And then at the last minute before all that went down, she started to distrust him because she believed what Adrian said, who on top of all that is the one who did it. The person that was kind of her closest friend, her best friend, finding out that it was actually him and that he lied about Jay. He made her distrust Jay. And it's got to hit Eve hard too because she was so certain it was him. And we also kind of got a little revelation. I figured as much that Connor would end up being Alex's dad, but it never correlated because I threw that out there because I was like, I don't remember if I included it or not, but I was like, that would kind of make the whole Jay and Alex situation weird. I don't remember if I cut that out of one of the original recordings or not when I was saying that, but nevertheless, it makes more sense why. It's like, it's not just any guy she was like super protective of Alex for. It was like, no, she was super protective of Jay. And it didn't correlate my brain to think that that's why she was doing it, because she didn't want Alex to kind of do anything with Jay because she knew that, because like, And the sad thing is, like, all the things that Alex has lied about, quote unquote lied about, it's like the only thing she really lied about was the whole Shelly. I mean, the only, like, the Mist not wanting her, like, that's the only thing she lied about. But then on top of that, and everyone's suspicions of them already, on top of what Eve's revealing at the last minute to Connor and everything, it's like, no, you're full of crap. Get the hell out of here. You're liars. How can we believe you now and stuff like that? So it just sucked in that department. And an interesting thing too is, God, I'm sorry. I do apologize because I'm bouncing all over the place, but I appreciated that at the end of it all, like, Kevin did what he did. I was like, wait, I thought Kevin was going to go back, to tell Connor, it's like, hey, your son, I'm sorry to tell you he died, but he didn't do that. I thought that's what it was going to be. But then they're like, wait. Mia was like, don't do it. And Kevin's like, putting your seatbelt. I was like, he's not going to, and he does. He backs up and busts the door wide open to let all the mist in, kind of a final middle finger to everyone. Because, I mean, truth be told, it's like, a part of me was like, well, there's that group that Eve was with. It's kind of sad that they kind of got lumped into it. But then at the same time, I guess it's like, ultimately, when everything came out, they didn't actually stick up for Eve and Alex. The only person who did was Kimmy. And granted, Kimmy got a bullet from Kyle from it, which, kind of irrational for him to do what he did. He's like, we have the right to defend ourselves. Against what? A lady standing up on a fountain talking and you shot her for it? It's not like she was threatening you. She's like, come on, we can't do this. And you shot her for it just because she resisted you. Obviously, you see people there having like some reservations about this whole situation, but you have other people being like, nah, F that, you gotta go. Broke the rules and stuff. I mean, when you actually think about it, it's actually all Gus's fault. And he has the audacity to be like, oh, we can't believe you. Oh, you and your family bring up the chaos. It's like, really, this is all your fault because you killed Shelly. Because you didn't want to admit that you still had food stashed away, because that would mean admitting like you were a detriment to the group. And what happens to people who are a detriment to the group? They get kicked out. And it sucks. It just sucks because that all stemmed from him. That lie spiraled everything. So I mean, like, it's just that situation of everyone's already in a pissed off state and they're already listening to what Shelley was saying. And on top of that, her murder and then Gus's lie, it was one thing after another. So that was crazy to me that things kind of transpired the way they did, and it's definitely got to suck for Connor when it's all said and done because I was actually surprised because I thought he was going to kill Jay himself. I thought like, oh man, he's going to pull out that knife, stab Jay, or shoot him or something. It's like no, he ended up pushing Jay out in the mist. I guess the point is to kind of feed Jay to the mist to kind of balance nature again in its own way. But even then, it's like you have him being like, well, what's up with this mist? Why isn't it going away? Natalie's like, no, it will. He's probably still alive and everything. And it's like, it's got to be messed up because it was a conversation he had with Gus because Gus is like, because like Connor had that moment like, whoa, what are you talking about? Like, oh, you're trying to lock people up or, kicking people out. You're trying to play, like you're the law in this situation. It's like, when it's all said and done, we've all done things that we regret, but we just have to live for tomorrow, like live for today. We have to live through this to kind of eventually, find a way to live with what we've done. And it's like Connor will have to live with what he did, pushing his own son out into the mist, doing all the terrible things he did because Natalie said so. And it's just like for him to be like so wrong about everything. And now Kevin didn't necessarily say it at the end, but I'm sure the conversation is going to come up like, Jay didn't do it. And you see that part of him kind of heartbroken at the end when Alex is like, Jay saved me. And it's like, yeah, because of what he did. Like, I mean, granted, I guess arguably you could say, well, because of what he did, it put Jay in a position to save Alex when the time came. But still, like, he could be leaving there with his son, but it just sucks. Just things kind of happened the way they did, and he didn't get there in time to kind of, well, I mean, I don't think they would have, if Kevin was able to get there sooner, he would have been able to kind of probably circumvent some of that situation maybe, but I don't know. It's crazy seeing that end where like everyone is dying inside of the mall. So, like I said, I guess arguably the only last good person in the mall that even Alex would even care about. Like Eve had her reservations, some, but you didn't really see her fighting it too much because it's probably like, yeah, F those guys. They were going to try to send us in the mist to die, so kind of F them. And you see everyone kind of dying from respective things. It looked like Kyle's covered in snakes and stuff. Once again, it seems like the mist feeds on your fear. I think we hear people banging on his door, but like we have Gus locked in his office. Don't know what that, I mean, to be fair, Gus could survive a lot longer, so I don't know if we would see him in the future or not because he does have food stashed in there. Granted, I don't know if how much he has left or whether he actually ate the food that he already had reserved and everything. It's so crazy that he tried to pretend to be like I took charge, no one else is going to take charge, so I took charge, and it's like you're just scheming and manipulating behind people's backs, so. I mean, obviously from an outside perspective, you can be like, oh, you can judge them all you want, but it's like in that position, it's like, human selfishness is like, who's to say you wouldn't do the same, so. But what's kind of interesting to me, kind of diving back into it, is the whole situation with Jay. It was kind of interesting because you see the mist like going inside of Alex, and immediately my brain thinks that's so interesting because it didn't seem like it was killing her, because if it was, I feel like it would have done it a lot quicker. It seemed like it might have been trying to possess her or something, but as I said, Jay saved her, which is kind of interesting. So immediately my brain goes, because the mist had no interest in her before, so it doesn't seem like it was trying to kill her, more like it was trying to possess her or do something. Like I think whereas Natalie thought she was the messenger, I don't think the mist has its roles it needs everyone to play. It needed Natalie to kind of get everything, kind of basically Natalie's interference to kind of lay down the groundwork of getting everything. The mist, once again, I think the mist into some level might be a sentient thing that kind of understands, and it manipulated her into thinking like you're special so that you would think and do all this stuff that would lead to situation being what it is. So it ended up getting Alex, but then it did that instead to Jay. So whether he's dead or not, I don't know. I mean, it seems like he's dead, but maybe it's like, maybe you could argue maybe it ate away at his soul or is possessing him. Because the thing is, interestingly enough, like the fact is it did it like that, it didn't do it any other way, makes me wonder, like, because I don't think over the course of the series we've ever seen Jay in the mist either. So maybe, Natalie, maybe her situation was a fluke. Maybe that, the mist has its purposes for everyone. So maybe whatever it wanted, it was going to do it for Alex. Or maybe you could argue, maybe it really was about to kill Alex because it didn't kill Alex to spark everything. Like maybe, like once again, maybe the mist is that smart to the point it's like manipulating the situation. It's like, oh, we're going to leave Alex alive. We're just going to kill this little girl just so it'll just look bad on Alex's part and everything when it's all said, to kind of fuel the fire in people because, it needs them to turn against each other. That's what it does. It turns people against themselves as well as other people. I don't know. I get the feeling like there might be more to the whole Jay situation, even if he's quote unquote dead. But who's to say? And also, there's the whole Adrian situation. Kevin beat the crap out of him. Rightfully so. But even to the very end, he's like, I love her. I love her. It's like, piece of crap. Like, I was wondering how he was. I figured this wasn't going to be the end for him, and lo and behold, how he ended up getting out. He got out with Jonah and Wes, which I'll get to that in a second. But it's like, of course, you're going to make it through this. So I was so thinking it was going to be a situation of he grabs Adrian and takes him to the front and proves it. Like, you want to kick somebody out, kick this bastard out. He raped my daughter. It's like, wait, what? So I don't know. That's where my mind, went initially. So, but he's still around. So, which arguably maybe there's some truth to what Natalie says that once the mist gets his pound of flesh, I don't know, because it doesn't seem like this is. I mean, it's hard. Like the question is, what is the mist? That's still the question we don't have answered. Is it a sentient thing? Is it something that was man-made? Is it something natural that the government, like the army, military, whoever is? Because at the end, you had that little twist at the end where they're dropping off prisoners and stuff like that. And then Kevin's like, they're feeding it. There's literally a train that went by and they pushed like people in orange jumpsuits. So it's like, well, they're prisoners. No one's going to miss them anyway. So they are feeding it. Like this is some like big giant, like this whole situation is a big giant petri dish, and they're trying to see like how it reacts and what it does, how it affects people. I thought it was more like, I mean, I guess arguably it could be a combination of lab rats plus like, food. Lab rats to see how it affects people, because that does seem like that's what the military's purpose was here in Tao, to kind of investigate and see how everything transpired, really see how it affected people, but more so probably than anything to see if it actually fed on everyone. So that was kind of an interesting I mean, it's lucky that Mia and them was like, Mia was like, no, we're going to wait, because if they had gone up there, most likely they would have gotten shot, which obviously, like, I kind of like throughout this entire thing, I've kind of constantly steered away from like talking about the movie too much without going into too many spoilers, kind of stuff here and there. But I mean, very drastically different from the movie, especially like the ending to the movie. I'll just leave it at that to anyone that's ever seen, the movie adaptation of this. Which, if this is your first time hearing this, I've never read the book, so I don't know which one is a closer adaptation, whether it's the movie or this. But nevertheless, like this interpretation, this adaptation did some very interesting things. It's been a while since I've seen the movie, so I don't remember that much. The only thing I vividly remember were certain character like story lines, as well, who they were and what they did in the story, plus the ending. Those are the things I remember the most about it, just because that ending was so like, what the fuck? So anyway, so that was kind of interesting. And also getting back to it, because I kind of dropped off from it and I was going to branch off into it. It's the whole Brian, I was about to call him Brian again, Jonah situation, leaving with Wes. It's like he got freed and everything because he's, Wes's superior officer, and he's like trying to get answers because he's saying something interesting. He's talking about the doctor. He's like, if you want answers, you have to talk to the doctor. And he's like, oh, the one that was torturing me? He's like, torturing me? He's like, she saved your life. It's like, what does that mean? Like, maybe does Jonah have some kind of connection to the mist? Like, was her saving him the byproduct of why he doesn't have his memory anymore? Once again, I kind of brought it up in a previous episode, like maybe when he ran across the real Brian, like he was in a kind of a feral state. And so he ended up like her beating him up and stealing his clothes or something like that. Maybe that's what happened. Like when he was escaping, the Arrowhead like base or whatever facility, that's what happened. And so I don't know. But it was kind of interesting, that whole conversation between Brian and me, because they literally had that whole thing last episode about like, let's run off together when this is all said and done. And it's like Brian chooses to go with Wes for a multitude of reasons. Like, obviously, like Jonah wants to bring the others with him. He does, because they are his friends. They're people he care about, because they got him this far, especially Mia. He really cares about her. But, Wes is like, yeah, if you care about them, don't bring them along. Because I guess it's a situation of, like, if they did get brought along, much like the whole train situation, if they gotten close, they would have been killed just because it's like, hey, you noticed something you ain't supposed to know. Bam, 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 So, that's where I'm thinking. Which is kind of sad because in a sense, it's like, the relationship they built up and, like, he ended up choosing his past over her. And I guess arguably it kind of makes sense because last episode she was like, it's like if we kind of met out of under different circumstances, it wasn't this missed situation, what would be the first thing you'd want to know or something? I forgot what the exact conversation was. And basically I was like, yeah, know who I am. That's the top priority for him. And it's sad. And for me, it hits her on multiple folds because it's like, that means like I come second. I get finding out who you are is important, but it's like, I need you and our friend Kevin needs you considering the whole situation because Brian didn't know Jonah still didn't find out about the whole Adrian situation, which is definitely going to which makes that ending with them even more interesting because he doesn't know the truth about Adrian and Adrian could keep lying and staying with Jonah and be like, no, Jonah's going to do whatever he can to protect Adrian, not knowing the truth because Mia never had a chance to explain it to him. I just thought about that. That's crazy. But, also for Mia, she's like, don't leave me. Because Jonah's the reason why she got clean and everything. He was kind of her anchor. And now that he's gone, there's the question of what will happen, or will she kind of slip back into her old habits, or what, will the others be there to kind of help her out? Because I don't think any of the others know about her kind of like her drug situation. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Jonah was the only one that knew, so. And I kind of skated around it, but also the whole situation with Natalie. I guess her and her husband lost a baby when, back in the day or so, at some point, and the baby kind of gets brought to her by her husband, and she's feeding the baby, and I guess the baby in the mist in the form of the baby is sucking the life out of her. So, like, she ends up saying, like, oh, we all die. So I guess in her mind, it brings the question of, like, did at any point she doubt herself? Because at the end, you had Connor almost walking away, and he flipped his knife, which made me think, like, was he going to try and attack, Natalie? Because he was blaming her because it's like, you told me getting rid of my son will stop all this, but it didn't. And now, like, you helped. Now, because of you, everything's transpired. Rather than the mist stopping, now my daughter, the person I just found out is my daughter, is cast out into the mist as well. And it was just so much stacked on top of each other that I think that's what he was ultimately going to do, especially because Natalie was going to start her speech. And then immediately my brain was going to go, wait, are we going to end this with her like convincing everyone to join her? Obviously, that was before, obviously I talked about it earlier, what Kevin did and everything. So obviously that ended up not being the case. So I was like, because that's kind of what happened, kind of transpired in the movie, was that similar character, once again played by Marissa Gay Harden, was who did something like that, kind of convinced the people in the mall. I don't remember if everyone in the mall was convinced or not, or was it just a select few people? But nevertheless, that's what I was kind of thinking. But it's like, no. And even then, she wasn't the one that survived. I mean, there's still the possibility of her popping up because, as we can see, the mist takes on the form of people that died and everything. But it's like, I wonder at the very end, did she go, holy crap, I believed all this stuff, I was wrong? Because she's still kind of like, oh, death is beautiful. Like, you are dying. It's okay. Even I'm dying. And, dying is okay. So it's like, I think even at the end, she still held fast to her own beliefs and stuff like that. So, I don't know. I that was kind of interesting. Like, all that she did, all the people that died. Because literally, this means, aside from Connor, everyone that was at that church is dead. Not unless the people that were in the church found a way to get out. I doubt they did, but everything she did, once again, going back to it, everything Connor did, he's got to live with that. Not only his son, the two people, the husband and wife that they were with last episode and left them to kind of be food for rats, the people they left in the church and everything, he followed her, he believed in her because he had nothing else to believe in. And so I'm curious to see, I don't know if this is getting renewed for a second season. I really hope so, because this was such a good ending, and it set up so much good stuff that I'd like to see what it means going forward. Especially the Jonah situation. I want to know what Wes meant by, oh, she saved you. So it's was it, like I said, is he connected to the mist or something like that? Or was it he was dying and maybe she did some weird thing where she implanted part of the mist? Something weird like that? Or what? What is so top secret about this whole situation? Because because Jonah was saying do you know what this thing is? do I know where it came from? And Wes wouldn't give an answer. So basic question, like, Jonah is deeply connected to this whole situation, which then does beg the question, why did Brian try to kill him later on? You see Wes treating him with respect, but Brian didn't. So maybe Brian was kind of lower on the like military totem pole and didn't really know who Jonah really was. But then again, he knew Jonah by name, but maybe I don't know. Cause like, why? Maybe he wasn't trying to kill Jonah. Maybe he was trying to knock him out. I don't know. Maybe the point was to knock him out and then try and contact the military to come get. I don't know. Like, it's just a very, very good season finale, and I really hope we do get a season 2 to this, because I'd love to see what they would do with it. Like, because the whole plan was like, hey, let's get out of town. It's like, oh, we're not. I mean, I don't know if they're going to get out of town. Like, I mean, we don't know how far this mid stretch. I assume it's just over the course of the entire town, like covers the entire town. So there's probably like no like getting out of town, because probably every corner of the town is probably like covered by the military. So probably the only place they could go is probably Arrowhead, because it's the safest place. So especially because that's where Jonah and Wes and Adrian are heading. So I mean, and it's a crazy thing too. I know this is kind of like. I was about to mention something, but it's going to be a spoiler for a different show, for someone who hasn't seen it. So basically, there's a show that I'm quite familiar with that I really like that kind of did a similar thing that this show did, where it basically wiped out most of its cast in its season finale. I think that's kind of interesting. Like, most of the cast of the show is gone, because most of everyone from the mall is gone now too. So now you only have your main characters that you kind of got to know, like, Wes a little bit. And so that's just kind of interesting to me. Like, if they decided to do a second season going forward with that, like, we'd be getting a whole new cast and what that would be about. Would you even get that town aspect again? Because the thing, when you actually think about it too, like, most of the town, like probably like at least like 70, probably 80% of the town was in that mall. I mean, the rest are outside and most likely dead, but now they're all gone. Granted, once again, that depends on who survived and who didn't. Maybe Gus locked himself in his room and was safe, and maybe he holds out there. There's still certain characters too, like there's that the dude from a couple episodes back who Kevin was kind of lying to him, didn't tell him about his son at first, but then eventually did. The dude who ended up shooting Jonah, that dude, we saw him kind of going out into the mist on his own, so there's always a possibility, hey, he might show up in the future, but who knows. And also, like, specifically what's going to go on with Alex. Like, once again, also the whole equation of, like, is she important to the mist? Was she just a piece of a puzzle? Whether Jay means anything to this piece of the puzzle, like, his circumstance. And also, like, going forward, what does that mean for Alex? She has Kevin, she's grown up thinking is her dad, but now she has a real dad with her. And then now she knows, like, her best friend assaulted her, just everything. And doing what they did, basically, essentially killing everyone in the mall, doing what they did. So I'm very curious to see where she resides in all of this. Vic didn't really say much, but I'm sure he's kind of like, I'm fine with that. They kicked me out in the mist. They were basically leaving me to die, so I'm sure Vic's kind of okay with it too, so. I love that a character like Vic is kind of a part of this too, just because, like, it was just kind of like, he did some crap in the mall, and then he got kicked out, and it's just like, now he kind of got mixed up in all this. I just thought that was kind of interesting, so. But that's enough of me rambling on, so, that's it. That's all I want to talk about in this episode. But till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.